Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 29. A month after I became the live-in driver for the city's most untouchable couple, I got a text at midnight from my boss that said, "Can you come over for just a minute?" I crossed the lawn in bare feet, cold air biting my ankles, porch light buzzing overhead like a warning I couldn't hear yet. When I walked into that dark living room, his wife was sitting there holding his phone. And she whispered, "I couldn't look at you because I didn't trust myself to stop. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong." I became the live-in driver for the city's most untouchable couple on a Thursday in October. And the first thing I noticed wasn't the house or the money. It was how quiet everything was. The gates opened without a sound. The driveway curved through landscaping so perfect it looked painted. And when I parked my car, this beat-up Honda that suddenly felt like an apology, the only noise was gravel crunching under my boots. I was 29. I needed the job. More than that, I needed the guest house that came with it. Grant Cole met me at the front door. Tall, expensive suit, handshake that felt like a contract. He smiled the way people do when they've practiced it in mirrors. "Ethan, welcome. Let me show you around." He walked me through rules that sounded friendly but weren't. Privacy, punctuality, discretion. He never raised his voice, but every word landed like a signature on paper I hadn't read yet. The guest house sat behind the main property, close enough that I could see their bedroom window from mine. Close enough that at night, I'd hear doors closing. Voices I couldn't quite catch. Marla, the head housekeeper, tested me immediately. "Where'd you work before? Why'd you leave? What made you apply here?" I kept my answers simple, respectful. I'd learned that survival was about not saying too much. Then Vivian appeared. She came down the main staircase, while Marla was walking me through the kitchen schedule. I heard heels clicking on marble first, sharp, deliberate. Then she turned the corner. She was 45, beautiful in a way that made you tired just looking at her, like being that put-together required maintenance you couldn't see. "You must be Ethan." Her voice was polite, empty. She shook my hand once, smiled with her mouth, but not her eyes, and disappeared back upstairs before I could answer. That night, I stood at my guest house window and watched the lights in the main house shut off one by one. Bedroom last. I didn't know it yet, but I'd just moved into a museum that was still inhabited. The first full day started at 6 a.m., with coffee brewing and the smell of citrus clean polish already in the air. Marla had left a clipboard on the counter. Grant's schedule, Vivian's shopping list, a note at the bottom. "Stay in your lane." I drove Grant to a business meeting across town. Who hated detours, hated being late, hated anything that suggested the day wasn't moving exactly how he'd designed it. On the way back, I stopped at the market for Vivian's list. Small items, specific brands. The kind of control that pretends to be preference. I found Vivian in the hallway later, standing near the front window like she'd been placed there. "Does the car still smell like new leather?" she asked. It was a strange question. I paused. "A little." "You want me to air it out?" She blinked. "No, I just wondered." Then she walked away, and I was left holding grocery bags, trying to figure out what I'd just answered. That afternoon, Owen Pierce appeared. He lived across the street. Friendly smile, golden retriever on a leash, the kind of neighbor who knows everyone's business because he asks like he cares. "You're the new guy, right? Ethan?" I nodded. "Good people here," he said, gesturing toward the Cole house. "Real good people. We like knowing who's around, you know? Keeps the neighborhood safe." His smile stayed, but his eyes scanned me like I was a form he needed to file. That evening, I saw Vivian again. She sat at the far end of the dining table with Grant. He talked. She nodded. Her hand tightened once around her napkin, knuckles white, then relaxed. From the doorway, I watched her practice being fine. Marla assigned me to fix the porch light next. It flickered. Buzzed. She handed me the tools like it was a test I hadn't studied for. "Don't go inside without permission," she said. I didn't. But Vivian watched from behind the curtain while I worked. I felt her eyes before I saw the shadow move. Orchestrated narrative pacing and sensory progression toward pivotal romantic moment. Good pacing so far. I need to continue building the slow tension, incorporating the sensory details, and moving through the chapters naturally. Let me continue with the bookstore scene, the midnight knock, and build toward the first big moment with the text message. Later that week, Vivian asked me to drive her to a bookstore. Grant wasn't told. Marla was, and her mouth pressed into a line that said everything she wouldn't. In the bookstore, Vivian bought one novel and one journal. She lingered in the quiet aisles like silence was medicine she couldn't get at home. On the ride back, she asked questions that felt too casual to be casual. "Do you live alone out there?" "Yeah." "Do you ever get tired of being useful?" I glanced at her. She was staring out the window, fingers tracing the edge of the journal in her lap. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "but it beats the alternative." She smiled faintly. "What's the alternative?" "Being useless." She didn't respond, but something in her posture softened. That night, Owen waved from across the street as I walked back to the guest house. It was late, too late for neighborly friendliness, but his smile didn't waver. I waved back and kept walking, feeling watched. Grant requested a last-minute dinner pickup the following week, snapping that details matter. I juggled errands, overheard Marla on the phone, voice low and sharp. There need to be boundaries. I didn't ask who she was talking about. Vivian passed me in the hallway that evening and murmured, "Thank you." I stopped. "For what?" "The porch light. It's steady now." She didn't wait for a response. That night, I heard heels on marble again. Slow, restless. They stopped near the front door, then retreated. Then came the knock. Soft, hesitant. At my guest house door. I opened it immediately, heart thudding. No one was there, just cold air, and the faint trace of perfume drifting from the path toward the main house. I stood on the stoop, staring at the dark windows, unsettled by a question I couldn't name. Nina Shaw arrived the next morning like weather no one had predicted. She walked into the kitchen laughing with Marla, charming and sharp, and when she saw me, she stopped. "Oh, you must be Ethan." Her smile was warm. Her eyes were filing cabinets. She asked my name, my age, where I was from, like she was collecting inventory for later use. Vivian seemed brighter with Nina around, but it was the kind of brightness that required effort, performance energy. Grant was affectionate in public, hand on Vivian's shoulder, kiss on her temple. But the second Nina looked away, his face went neutral. Later, Nina cornered me near the pantry. "You must see a lot," she said sweetly. "Not really. I'm just the driver." Her smile didn't move. "Still, you're around." Vivian caught that exchange. Her gaze sharpened, not jealous, more like alarmed. That night, Vivian stood at the top of the staircase as I locked the front door. She opened her mouth like she'd speak. Then she turned and disappeared into the dark hallway. It happened on a Tuesday. I was half asleep in the guest house when my phone lit up the room. The text came from Grant's contact. "Can you come over for just a minute?" I froze. My stomach dropped. My mind raced through every mistake I might have made, every boundary I might have crossed without knowing. I pulled on shoes and crossed the lawn in socks, night air biting my ankles. The porch light buzzed overhead, steady but electric. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the living room was dim. One lamp on, shadows long. Vivian sat on the couch holding Grant's phone like it was contraband. She looked up at me, and I saw it immediately. Shame. It wasn't him, she said quietly. I used his phone so my message wouldn't show up anywhere. I stood in the doorway, not moving closer. Why? She set the phone down carefully. Because I couldn't stand the quiet, and I didn't want to bother the staff. I'm staff. You came. Her voice cracked once, then steadied. You came without asking why. I stayed at the edge of the room, distance intact. You want me to sit? She nodded. I sat in the chair across from her. Not the couch, the chair. She didn't flirt, didn't lean forward. She just looked exhausted in a way makeup couldn't hide. 1 minute, she whispered. That's all. I just needed proof someone would come. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Vivian's eyes snapped toward the ceiling. Fear flashed across her face, raw and immediate. You should go. I stood, walked to the door, stepped onto the porch. Behind me, a curtain shifted in the upstairs window. Someone was awake. Someone had been watching. The next morning, I washed my coffee mug too long, replaying the midnight living room like it was a crime scene. The household moved like normal. But it wasn't. Vivian avoided my eyes at breakfast. Grant was unusually pleasant, which somehow made everything worse. Marla gave me extra chores. Busy work that kept me visible, accounted for. Owen caught me at the mailbox later. Late night, huh? I looked at him. He grinned. Saw your light on past 2. You're a night owl. Couldn't sleep. Yeah. His grin stayed. Happens. In the afternoon, I found a note in the car's console. Folded once. Vivian's handwriting. Thank you for last night. Please forget it. I sat with that note in my hand, staring at the words. Forget it. The one thing I couldn't do. Grant asked me to drive Vivian to a charity planning meeting at their house a few days later. Small group. Private, meaning I'd be in the orbit all day. Nina was there. Marla was there. I moved chairs, brought trays, became invisible. Nina watched me work, then quietly asked Marla, just loud enough for me to hear, Is he trustworthy? Vivian stiffened. After the guests left, Vivian asked me to drive her around. No destination, just around. In the car, she admitted the truth. I didn't text because I wanted attention. I texted because I wanted proof someone would come without being ordered to. The air between us felt too small. You're not ordering me now, I said carefully. No. She stared out the window. I'm asking. At the driveway, she paused before getting out. Her fingers hovered near my sleeve, wool against skin, then stopped. She pulled her hand back like it burned. That night, I heard heels again, pacing, stopping near the front door. This time she didn't knock. Rain came the following week. Gray skies, windshield wipers tapping like impatient fingers. Vivian requested a grocery run, with me. Marla objected, subtle but firm. I can handle it, Vivian insisted, calm, steel-edged. I'd like Ethan to drive me. In the store, Vivian had a moment of normalcy. She chose apples, smelled them, smiled faintly. Then a woman she knew appeared 2 aisles over. Vivian turned away like she was hiding. On the ride home, she said quietly, People think being seen is a gift. It isn't. I kept my eyes forward. Back at the house, Marla cornered me in the pantry. Don't confuse kindness with permission. It landed like a threat dressed as advice. Grant wanted the car detailed perfectly. A control ritual. He rode with me and talked about loyalty, privacy, household harmony, never raised his voice. Didn't need to. Later, Vivian asked me to fix a stuck window latch upstairs, technically inside her space. While I worked, she stood too close, then stepped back fast, like she caught herself doing something wrong. "My marriage runs on appearances and schedules," she said suddenly. I didn't look at her, just kept working the latch. "You don't have to tell me that." "I know." Her phone buzzed on the dresser. Nina's name lit up the screen. Again. But I wanted to say it out loud. Downstairs, her phone kept buzzing, vibrating like a heartbeat she couldn't ignore. That night, Vivian walked past my guest house window. Alone, in a coat without a scarf. She looked like someone who forgot where she lived. The dinner party was small but flawless. Grant wanted perfection. Marla was tense. Staff whispered in the kitchen. Guests arrived. Vivian became radiant on command. Grant played the perfect husband, hand on her back, soft laughter, practiced affection. Nina was there, scanning everything. I served drinks, collected glasses, stayed invisible. Vivian slipped into the hallway to breathe, and I was there with empty glasses in my hands. She almost bumped into me. My hand instinctively steadied her elbow. An accidental touch. She flinched, then didn't move away. A guest laughed nearby, footsteps approaching. We separated instantly. Later, after everyone left, Vivian stood alone in the kitchen staring at the sink. I left a cup of tea on the counter without a word and walked out before she could react. The next morning, the teacup sat in the sink. Rinsed, placed neatly upside down. A quiet acknowledgement. Vivian requested a drive to the lake overlook. Public enough to be safe, private enough to talk. In the car, she asked about my past in a way that wasn't gossip, more like she was trying to picture a life that wasn't curated. I revealed only what was safe. I was rebuilding. I was careful. At the overlook, we didn't get out, just sat, listening to wind and distant traffic. "You came when I asked," she said. That was it. But it was everything. Back home, Owen was on his porch, watching us arrive. He lifted a hand in a slow wave, eyes lingering too long on Vivian. The storm hit late afternoon. Power flickered. The porch light buzzed, steadied, then buzzed again. Grant was away. Marla coordinated candles and flashlights, irritated that I was in the way. Vivian was unusually calm, almost relieved the house couldn't perform. She asked me to sit in the living room. Lights off, rain loud against the windows. "I hate the silence when it's too clean," she said. She sat on the couch. I sat in the chair across from her. Distance intentional. Thunder cracked. Vivian startled. Her hand landed on my sleeve, soft wool against my skin for balance. Then she yanked it, back, breath caught, ashamed of needing comfort. "This can't happen again," she whispered. Power returned suddenly. The living room lights snapped on, exposing how close the moment had felt. Vivian stood too fast and left without looking back. The morning after the storm, everything looked normal again, but the air still felt charged. Vivian avoided me all day, like she was punishing herself for needing something. Marla assigned me to reorganize the garage. Physical distance. Busy work designed to keep me out of sight. Nina arrived unexpectedly that afternoon. I heard her voice before I saw her. Bright, sharp, like she'd been sharpening it on the drive over. She and Vivian disappeared behind a closed door. Low voices, sharp edges I couldn't make out. When Nina emerged, she found me near the kitchen. "Ethan," she smiled. Are you dating anyone? No. Really? Handsome guy like you? Really? Her smile widened like she'd just learned something useful. That night, Vivian passed my guest house window on her way back from the garden. She stopped for a second, like she might speak. Then she walked faster, running from her own impulse. Grant asked me to run errands with him the next day, just the two of us in the car. He talked about trust again, about how people talk, about how staff can misinterpret kindness. It was a warning without accusation. Back home, Vivian asked me to pick up a replacement bulb for the porch light. Tiny. Trivial. But it felt like an excuse to keep a thread between us. I noticed Owen chatting with a delivery driver at the curb, pointing toward the property like he was mapping it socially. That evening, I heard Vivian's voice from the top of the stairs. She said my name once, then stopped. I looked up. She was already gone. The next morning, Vivian didn't come down for breakfast. Marla said she had a headache. Her tone suggested something else. Vivian went cold after that. No requests, no eye contact, no drives. Nina was suddenly around more, sitting with Vivian in the sunroom like a guard. I overheard them talking one afternoon. Nina's voice was low but clear. "You're playing with fire," Vivian replied quietly. I didn't light it. Later, Marla cornered me in the hallway. Nina asked questions. Don't give her anything. That night, Grant found me near the front door. "You're around my wife a lot." He didn't raise his voice, just watched me too long, like he was measuring something I couldn't see. I went back to the guest house and opened my laptop. For the first time, I drafted a resignation letter. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. I printed it the next morning, folded it carefully like a funeral note. I decided to keep things clean. Reduce contact, stick to Marla's tasks, avoid Vivian's wing. But avoidance became its own obsession. Every hallway felt haunted by what didn't happen. Owen caught me again at the mailbox. "We like knowing who's in our neighborhood," he said, gesturing toward the Cole house. "Keeps things safe, you know?" It sounded like community, felt like surveillance. That evening, Vivian appeared briefly in the kitchen doorway, saw me, turned away so fast it felt like a slap. Grant hosted a contractor walkthrough the following week. The house filled with outsiders, gossip risk spiked. I was assigned to escort contractors, keep them out of private rooms. One of them accidentally opened Vivian's bedroom door. I intervened fast, closing it before he stepped inside. Vivian emerged from the hallway, composed but shaken. Grant praised me in front of everyone. "That's why we trust Ethan. He understands boundaries." Publicly rewarding loyalty, privately tightening the leash. Nina watched that exchange, eyes narrowed. Later she cornered me again. "You're lucky to be here." She smiled. "Really lucky. It landed like, you're disposable." That night, I sat at my desk staring at the resignation letter. I couldn't deliver it. Something in me refused to abandon Vivian to her invisibility. Marla called me into the kitchen a few days later, lowered her voice. "There are rumors." I went still. "Owen asked if Vivian goes out at night. Nina's been talking to Owen's sister at some event." Marla's jaw tightened. "Nothing official, just threads." The threat wasn't confrontation. It was reputation rot. "What do you want me to do?" "Stricter boundaries. No late drives, no porch crossings." She paused. "If this blows up, you're the first one out." That evening, Vivian left a book on the back table near the guest house path. No note. A silent gesture. "I still exist to you." I held the book in my hands, realizing Vivian was communicating through objects now because words were too dangerous. Grant asked for a drive the next morning. Just him. The car felt like a confession booth I didn't consent to. He mentioned integrity again. Asked where I went at night. Guest house, chores, sleep. He watched my hands on the wheel. Good. It wasn't praise, it was ownership. Later, I noticed Vivian's scarf was missing from the coat rack. I noticed because I shouldn't have. Nina arrived that afternoon and took Vivian out for lunch. Vivian returned quieter. Eyes red like she'd cried in a bathroom and washed it away. Late that evening, I sat with the resignation letter again. Quitting started to feel like what Grant wanted. A small neighborhood gathering happened across the street the following weekend. Owen had neighbors over. Lights on, laughter carrying through the cold air. Owen invited Grant and Vivian casually at the mailbox. Grant declined with charm. Vivian forced a smile. Owen said too lightly, "We still see you moving around late sometimes." Vivian's face tightened. Later, she asked me, first direct request in days, to check the porch light again. When I was on the ladder, Nina appeared behind the glass door, watching. Vivian stood inside, not speaking, fingers twisting together. The moment was intimate only because it was restrained. That night, Nina cornered Vivian in the hallway. I heard the edge of Nina's voice. "You're making yourself look foolish." Vivian's response was a whisper I couldn't fully catch. The next morning, the house was quiet. Vivian didn't come down. Marla said she was resting, but she wouldn't look at me. Vivian was completely unreachable after that. Nina left midday, satisfied. Grant was in a good mood, which was dangerous. I finally committed. I'd resign at the end of the day, leave clean, stop being a risk to Vivian. I packed a small bag in the guest house, folded my uniforms, wiped down surfaces like I was erasing myself. Late that night, I sat on the bed with the resignation in my hand. Then my phone buzzed. 2:07 a.m., unknown number. Check the porch light. Cold air bit my ankles as I stepped outside. The porch light flickered. Not broken. Deliberate. Like a coded knock. I walked toward the main house slowly, scanning windows. The porch swing creaked in the wind. On it sat Vivian's scarf, folded neatly. A note tucked inside. "I couldn't look at you because I didn't trust myself to stop." My chest tightened. The front door opened a crack. Vivian stood in the doorway, staying on her side of the threshold. We spoke in whispers. "You shouldn't have come," she said. "You asked me to." "I know." Her voice broke slightly. I needed to say this before you left." "How did you know I was leaving?" "Marla told me you've been packing." Vivian's fingers gripped the doorframe. "She said you were doing the right thing." "Maybe I am." "Maybe." She looked down. "But if you leave, I go back to being invisible." I stepped closer, not inside, just closer. "Then I'll stay, but only in the light. No midnight crossings, no risks." She nodded. Tears didn't fall. Pride intact. "You made me feel seen," she whispered, "and it scared me." I lifted the scarf slightly, offering it back. She reached for it at the same time. Our fingers nearly brushed. She pulled away. No kiss. No embrace. Just that almost touch, suspended in cold air. "Thank you for coming," she said. Then she closed the door softly. The porch light steadied. I walked back to the guest house, holding the scarf's warmth like proof this wasn't imagined. The next morning, I sat on the guest house steps with coffee steaming in the cold air. I didn't hide inside. It felt like a new rule. I found Marla in the kitchen and told her, carefully, that I'd be limiting late-night movement for neighborhood optics. She studied me, then nodded. Relieved for the house more than for me. Later, Vivian appeared on the main porch, in daylight, wearing her scarf. She sat at the far end of the porch bench, leaving space. I stayed at the near end, coffee in hand. Grant walked past the window once, glanced out, saw nothing. 2 people in daylight. Properly spaced, properly innocent. Owen waved from across the street. I waved back. Calm, refusing to look guilty. Vivian didn't smile big. She just exhaled, like she could breathe in her own life for a minute. The routine became quiet and sustainable. Short drives with the radio low. Brief conversations that didn't reach for more than they were allowed to hold. A porch light that stayed steady. Some mornings, she'd sit on the porch bench with coffee. Some mornings, I'd sit on the guest house steps with mine. The space between us became its own language. Grant never asked questions. Marla stopped watching so closely. Owen's waves became routine. Nina visited less. Vivian started wearing color again. Small things. A red scarf, blue earrings, signs of someone remembering they were alive. We didn't talk about the midnight porch, didn't revisit the storm, or the text, or the moment our fingers almost touched. We just existed in the small spaces we were allowed, and somehow, that became enough. One evening, months later, I was cleaning the car when Vivian appeared. "Ethan?" I looked up. She held a book, the one she'd left for me before, the one I'd returned without a note. "I want you to keep this," she said quietly. "Why?" "Because—" She paused. "Because I need you to remember that someone saw me, even if no one else knows." I took the book. Our fingers didn't touch this time either. "I'll remember," I said. She smiled faintly, then walked back toward the house. The porch light buzzed softly overhead. Steady. That night, I stood at the guest house window and saw Vivian's silhouette pass the porch. No hiding. No running. Just a door left cracked in the only way we could survive. I opened the book later. Inside the front cover, she'd written in pencil. Faint, almost erasable. "Some doors don't open. They stay cracked." I closed the book carefully and set it on my nightstand. My phone stayed silent. Outside, the porch light flickered once, then held steady. Some nights it still did that. And some nights I still noticed. Some doors don't open. They stay cracked.